Okay, that's the shot of the day, of the hour, of the year, of the century, apparently. It's a black hole. It is coming this way and spinning this way. So it's coming through space this way, spinning this way. Now, I claim that the only possibility for what we see is that it is impacting on this border with some substance, a denser substance than nothing. Something is here, and it is colliding with it. The spin crushes these particles into this oncoming material, making it glow. Then as it rolls past, it gives a last bit of glow as it trails off. Otherwise, you would have just a big full glow here. You would not have this break. This is impacting. Now, I could say that and show other evidence throughout the universe that this is not something that's unique. It is everywhere. The universe, I believe, is filled with particles, which are the luminous particles primarily, that are given off by excited masses. They are chunks of mass, and I will demonstrate exactly what I mean by that. Okay, let's just start from the beginning. What is in space? I mean, it's a vacuum of space. There's nothing there. Oh, there's a particle here, a particle there. No. Space is literally filled with particles, and those particles are the luminescent particles shaken off by highly agitated sources like the sun, like the black hole, which illuminates enormous amounts of energy outside the event horizon. On one side's the event horizon, you can't get away, and it's gone. On the other side, it spits it out like crazy because it is also being concussed and being repelled, and whew, it goes away. So, what is in space? Space is loaded with particles. And if they are, what are they? They are primarily particles spit out by the sun and other luminous bodies, and we scrub through them. A lot of them are negative. There's a lot of excess negative particles. I can't account for that specifically, but they appear to get broken down and end up with a lot of extra negatives because the negatives get attracted through their ether. I'm going to just cut right to the chase. We're talking about ether here. And the ether is negative luminescing particles that are out through the universe, and they come from luminous bodies. They're emitted. They're chunks shot off of there. How does the sunlight get to us? How do you think it gets to us? These old waves. It's a wave of nothing. Obviously, that's not correct. It is particles, and actually, they weigh. They have weights, and there's a whole bunch of different weights. And the littlest ones we can see because they're in a weight that is not above our visual spectrum. The other ones are damaging. They are above us, and they collide with our atmosphere and are filtered out, so we don't really see them. The fine ones come through. We can see those. The other heavy ones, some come through, but not nearly as bad as it would be, except for the atmosphere absorbs them. So that's what comes through, and that's how the sunlight gets to us as particles through space. They have a weight. They are the dark matter and the dark energy, just floating through space towards us, or everywhere, because it's ubiquitous in space. And they say there's like 97%, 87%, some kind of huge amount that they have no accounting for. Well, it's just floating around, ready to smash into us. And what creates the ionosphere? That stuff. It collides with the ionosphere. The ionosphere is already charged particles of negative particles, zillions of them. They say they're ions, and they say they're positive particles. There's no positive particles. Positive particles become flooded with these electrons instantly when they become available. And then they become either photons or they become mass as they accumulate into chunks of 1836 bits makes up one proton, and then the protons become resident in that specific quantity. It just happens. And I'm sure there's some kind of math program you could run to see this, some supercomputer that would say, oh yeah, 1836, they jiggle this way, one plus goes to that side, and it goes there, goes a couple rings around a circle, and before long it's stable. At 1836, it will not fall apart. Above that, at 1837, it's a negative particle. It has a net negativity. And what happens at that point? It will hold electrons in its orbit, just like this. All right, this is Latham's crazy machines, crazy toys or whatever, crazy machines. Now, that's an electron-flooded core. He is going to approach it with an electron. Boom. It locks in at that distance because it has extreme positive pull to electrons, which that is, a negative. And it also has an excessive negativeness, which keeps that from being able to attach down solid to the positive. It's pretty damn tight. It's holding on strong. That's heat. When that happens, it's heat, or electricity will push it through the wires. When it escapes, it becomes light. So that is what we're dealing with. And all right, when that leaves, it becomes light. All right, and it becomes the particles ether, which is the things I'm talking about in space. Right now, it's just been shaking on the sun. Shake, 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 shake. Oh, it's hot, it's hot. Boom, gone. Heading off to Earth. All right, so we saw that negative particles are being emitted. Luminous bodies emit them. Sunlight gets to us as particles through space. It creates the ionosphere. What about ocean magnetic stripes? Let's look into that. The question I have is, why does everybody accept these kind of pictures and then say, oh, there's nothing out there? What do they think we're crashing into? It would just be one big ball sitting here doing nothing, because we wouldn't know there was anything there or not if there was nothing there. There would be no impact. There is an impact, and that impact is negative particles against a negative spinning mass. And I'm going to show you the stripes. When those stripes of negative lines impact with the negative particles crashing against us, it creates a magnetic field around the Earth, exactly the same as a generator. Identical, no difference whatsoever. This is what causes our magnetic field. There's no, well, I don't know if there's iron core or not. I can't comment on that, but I can tell you one thing for sure. These stripes are all over our Earth, and they are magnetic, positive, negative, positive, negative. That is exactly what's in a motor. They have the exact same thing. The motor spins inside a magnetic field, which is made by magnets. Nothing more than what we're doing, crushing through electronic particles, negative particles, and it spins and it crushes against those particles. When it does, it forces those particles to create a field, and it pushes them through wires. In our case, it's just causing them to create a field around our Earth to save us from being fried. All right, so now we know about the magnetic stripes. So, now, why is the magnetosphere so hot out there, though? Well, let's talk about it. I'm going to show you another one of my little pictures. All right, we know there's magnetic stripes, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. We're spinning this way, moving that direction, because that's what's called a right-hand spin. We're moving in this direction. The field lines are coming around. These fields are crushing into the oncoming particles. We're moving through it this way. We're moving through it this way, being ripped through the arm of the Milky Way. The ocean magnetic stripes create the magnetic field lines. It's as simple as that. You got a negative here flowing up to the positive. That's what's called the right-hand rule, and that's what happens when the electrons here in these stripes slip from the electrons that are crushing against them. The slip of the right-hand rule creates the magnetism and the forward flow from negative to positive. If it was reverse spinning, it's a whole different situation, and we're going to talk about that because that's Venus. So we now know that this is going to be the point of impact crushing against these particles because we're flowing this way. That creates the coronal heating, the magnetosphere heating of our Earth. It's 56,000 degrees out there. It's 80 degrees down here. This is what's causing our global warming, not down here from greenhouse gases. They have it totally backwards. Greenhouse gas is terrible. Yes, it might have some tiny, tiny impact, but certainly not like this. It's 56,000 degrees. Then it goes down to minus 120 because it's being scrubbed. Minus 120, then back up to 80 degrees at the surface. We got to rethink this whole thing. Now, you just saw that I'm claiming that the magnetosphere is overheated because of ether. The same thing with the sun. This explains the coronal heating problem. Please, nobody understands it. This is from the Montana State University. The question of why the solar corona is so hot remains one of the most exciting astronomy puzzles for the last 60 years. There's no definite answer to that question. Yes, there is. It's scrubbing through the ether. The corona is millions of degrees. The surface is 6,000 degrees. How the hell do you think it gets from 6,000 degrees at the surface and then jumps to millions at the corona unless it's scrubbing through the ether? I can't imagine why this is such a big puzzling dilemma. So, continuing forward, we talked about the magnetosphere. It's hot because it's scrubbing. What's the sun's corona? It is hot because it's scrubbing. Now, back to Venus. Why is Venus 850 degrees? It's almost our twin planet. It's not that far off from our orbit. It is not that far from the sun. It is not far from what we are, but it spins in reverse. It is a left-hand spinner. What does that mean? It means as the light comes against Venus, instead of slipping, it gathers, it crushes backwards. It's supposed to be going this way. It's going against it. And it's creating 850 degrees instead of 80 degrees. All right, now, so that takes care of that. Now, why does the black hole show an impact? I showed that. Black holes obviously got an impact. That's the impact right there. That is crushing into the impact zone. That's going away from the impact zone. That is the no man's land in the middle. It's a nice black hole. I have no problem with that. But my contention is, let's talk about what we're really doing in space. We are crushing into ether. We are crushing into particles. These are particles. John Glenn saw them in 1962 or whenever it was. I'm going to show you that because they're absolutely fabulous, and they've discounted that ever since. And the 96 tether incident where Claude could not get them out of the screen, you could see them as plain as day. And the reason they're there is because they're in, I think they call it the penumbra, which is just as the sun comes up or as the sun goes down. The sunlight illuminates them in the ionosphere area, but they're still in the darkness, so they become illuminated. After they become washed out, cannot see them anymore. All right, I'm going to finish it up with John Glenn. But if there were particles in open space, as there are, we would scrub through them as we are. Everything that I had just talked about is now explained. It is still called ether. They've known about this since Plato or before. It's been discounted because we couldn't see it. We can't see it. It's not there. Well, obviously it's there. You can't see your hand when it rubs through air. You know it's there. We're seeing the effects of it in so many different ways. It's just impossible to miss. And the real catastrophe is that they don't think it's there, so they just discount and look for carbon dioxide and methane and this and that. Well, yes, absolutely is a problem there. Think, though. Come outside the box. Don't be forced into these thought patterns that because your peers will not let you think. All right, this is John Glenn talking about fireflies that he saw in his first orbiting flight around Earth. Listen to this. Now, what's going to happen is he's going to be explaining these particles. And I've always been saying that these particles own an enormous region in space, and they do. They own approximately 4 feet around them if they were in free space, which is where he is. On Earth, they own 8¼ inches around them. It's called the 21 centimeter rule. I believe that's there's a certain diameter that they own, and it's called a 21 centimeter rule. It's not something that I made up. And it's a huge, huge region. Now, watch what he does, and then he's going to get cut off from the Earth. They won't be able to hear him. They're going to ask him, did he hear anything impacting the capsule? And he said no. And then from there on, they can't hear him anymore. And he's just going to be, but you'll be able to hear him, and he will explain exactly what he's seeing.
They lit up like they're luminescent. I never saw anything like it. They're around the little, they're coming by the capsule, and they look like little stars, a whole shower of them coming by.
All right, I want to explain too. This only happens when he is in the sun. The sun is illuminating these particles in the darkness of space. Once the sun hits them in a more direct manner, you lose it. All right, so, and he'll explain that he's just as I was coming into sunlight, something like that. And the same thing with the tether incident. Look up the tether incident. Identical, and the same time, oh, just coming out of sunlight. Now they're all washed out. Well, that's what happens.
They swirl around the capsule and go in front of the window, and they're all brilliantly lighted. They probably average maybe 7 or 8 feet apart, but I can see them all down below me.
All right, 7 or 8 feet apart. That's 4 feet around. Each of 4 and 4 is 8.
Also, negative. They're very slow. They're not going away from me more than maybe 3 or 4 miles per hour. They're going at the same speed I am, approximately.
Now he's cut off
They're
from
only
that.
very slightly under my speed. Over. They do have a different motion though from me, because they swirl around the capsule and then depart back the way that I am looking.
He's in the
Are you
ionosphere.
receiving? Over. There are literally thousands of them. This is Friendship 7. Am I in contact with anyone? Over.
Again, they can't hear him. He's in the middle of a zillion electrons.
This has been going on since about 1 plus 1:5, over. Just after I remarked about the sunset, I looked back up and looked out the window, and all the little swirl of particles was going by.
Just after the sunset. Exact same thing in the tether incident. Those are light particles. They collect around the Earth as our ionosphere. Those are the particles that interact with the oncoming particles to create our magnetic field. Alright, the research is based around the light experiments. Red pulse laser showing that these ether particles exist and linger in the air as static to collect on us. This is that pulse red laser accelerating through a venturi, which is a particle crusher. CERN could use this with heavy particles, I believe, to create plasma, which is the thing that they've been begging to find forever. This requires no additional electricity whatsoever. It creates the Higgs bosons, exactly what they are looking for, charged particles coming from Cherenkov high energy radiation, turning into bosons, spinning little charged particles, carrying a field when they crash into a different medium, which is exactly what we have here, creating these polarized fields. This over here created a reverse spinner, a highly white particle, no field around it. That particle is there, and it crashed with another Higgs and created this particle, which is smaller than light. These are the particles that are actually seen in red and green. We've seen them as they step down from the acceleration. This is the right-hand rule seen as particles leave the accelerator, accelerated, spinning, drifting to the left, spinning to the right, As they compress up here, very shortly the Higgs fields will appear. I have a lot of information on this. I have a new atomic model. It's called electron flood theory. And nothing is neutrons. There is no neutrons. There never was. Hydrogen is half and half plus one additional electron. It's 1,837 nuclear parts. 918 are positive. 919 are negative. There's one negative electron in the orbital, in the S1 orbital. So, I have a lot of information on it. If anybody's interested, it's Roger, R-O-G-E-R, at mudfossils.com. Thank you.